Nimble, Program Director of Pharmacy Tech Scholar, and in this video we're going to be talking about PTCB Practice Tests, or what we really mean, the Pharmacy Technician Certification Exam Practice Tests, or PTCE. We're using PTCB because that's what most people search for, but you get the picture. We're going to cover a couple of important topics about this. Number one being why PTCB practice tests are an important part of a study strategy and plan. We'll talk about how to use practice tests effectively and purposefully towards preparing for your actual PTCE attempt. We'll also talk about how to choose PTCB practice tests, because not all of them are made of the standard of what one would expect on the actual PTCE. And we'll wrap the video up with some additional tips for success. So as far as why practice tests are important, a big one is that it's a great way to simulate actual exam conditions. You can be well prepared in terms of studying and earning didactic knowledge through reading and going through education programs. You can gain on-the-job experience and be well prepared that way. But it might be a little different when you actually go in for your exam attempt. You've got 150 minutes to take 90 questions. There's a lot of pressure in that environment. You're going to have to think critically with some of the case-based example questions you might come across. And in order to respond well to that environment, you need to have been trained to experience it. So I highly recommend using practice exams so you can kind of build that foundation of being experienced in taking these standardized tests, so that when you go in for the real attempt on test day, it isn't the first time you're trying to take a challenging exam like this. Another important consideration is practice tests are a great way to identify knowledge gaps. You might think you're well prepared in the 4 major knowledge areas that are represented on the PTCE, but some of these questions are quite difficult, and they require critical thinking. They require being able to interpret a particular scenario. A lot of these questions are not exactly straightforward, and your knowledge may not be as sound as you think it is when you're presented with some of these challenging questions. So taking a practice test and having some challenges on some of the questions can clue you into specific knowledge areas that you need to focus on in your study plan. Another important consideration is it's a great way to build confidence. A lot of people get significant test anxiety as they're leading up to their PTCE exam date, but if you've gone through the repetition of doing practice tests routinely, you're feeling confident in your ability to navigate through those 150 minutes and be able to answer the questions with a high level of confidence, you're going to be at much better ease mentally and physically leading up to your actual exam attempt. And that's going to go a long way towards ensuring that you're able to succeed. Now, as far as how to actually use PTCB practice tests effectively, there are some important considerations. One is to do them regularly. It's great to do them early on in your study plan, because you can start to get a feel for what you might experience on the PTCE, and that's going to allow you to craft your study plan appropriately. But it's also important to do it routinely throughout your study plan, so you can track how you're progressing in your studies, and you can continue to refine your target areas of the specific knowledge that you need to work on in that study plan. Another important aspect of using practice tests is to be able to review and analyze the results. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about choosing an appropriate practice test, because you need to have feedback in order to take some knowledge away from that practice exam attempt. So hopefully the practice test you're taking is giving you some feedback on each knowledge domain, the percentage questions that you got right or wrong, and also an explanation of why an answer that you chose was correct or why it was not correct. So that's a big part of this study exam, practice exam strategy, is internalizing that information, analyzing it, and letting it guide your study plan moving forward. Another important concept is to make sure that you're doing timed practice exam sessions. Ideally, the practice exam you're taking is going to have this function natively, but if it doesn't, set a stopwatch and make sure that you're adhering to that 1 hour and 50-minute limit for those 90 questions. Through repetition, you'll learn to train yourself to spend the appropriate amount of time on each question. You don't want to get 90 minutes into the exam and only have 20 or 30 questions done, because then you're really going to be rushing and your exam performance is going to suffer. And the other key point I'll make about this is that you really want to try your best to simulate the exam day conditions. Make sure you're in a quiet room. You do not want any clutter around your desk when you're sitting down at your computer to take the exam. Don't allow yourself to be able to reference notes. Ideally, don't even use a handheld calculator or scratch pad on your desk. Now, you may be able to get these in a Pearson VUE testing center if they can provide that accommodation to you, but it's not guaranteed. So try to practice taking an exam using the on-screen calculator and an on-screen notepad, especially when it comes to those calculation questions. You don't want to try that for the first time on your real exam attempt. Now, for choosing the best PTCB practice tests, I have a couple of tips here. First and foremost is ensure there's authentic authorship of that resource. You want to make sure that it's been authored by a pharmacist or a certified pharmacy technician, and even better if it's been authored by an organization that you can validate. I'll state first and foremost that the best resource for a PTCB practice test is the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board itself. They have some great official practice tools in their pre-PTCE and their PTCE test bank. So highly recommend those. They do come at a cost, but that pre-PTCE actually uses the Pearson VUE software, so it will give you a look and feel of your real experience when you go to take the PTCE. And their test bank is actually old retired PTCE questions. So it's a great way to get a feel for the way that those exam questions are written and the cadence in which they provide those multiple choice options. And we offer a great one at Pharmacy Tech Scholar as well, with our unofficial practice PTCE that follows the exam format and will give you the feedback that you need to understand what you need to do directing your studies moving forward. And related to that, make sure that it's following the correct format. There should be 90 questions. Each question should be multiple choice with 4 options, with only one of those options representing the correct answer. And it should also represent an appropriate percentage of questions from each of the major knowledge domains on the PTCE: medications, federal requirements, patient safety and quality assurance, and order entry and processing. Also, you want to make sure that resource is up to date. I get a lot of questions from students who have taken a practice test online, and they start to get concerned because they've seen questions that they didn't encounter throughout their study plan. And a lot of the times what we're able to identify when that happens is that the resource they're using is way out of date. Before 2020, the PTCE followed a different format, and since it's been reformatted in 2020, any resource needs to have been updated to that new format in order to give the test taker an appropriate experience. And then lastly, make sure the resource you're using is going to provide you some feedback. Reporting on each knowledge domain would be nice, as well as an explanation of the answers. And you'll get that with the PTCB resources with that practice test bank, and you'll get that with our unofficial practice PTCE as well. And then lastly, some additional tips for success. Use a variety of resources. We're talking about practice tests in this video, but make sure you have a great study plan. Make sure that you're studying from some good books. I highly recommend books published by the major pharmacy associations for your practicing and your studying. If you're using an education program, make sure that it's PTCB recognized, and make sure that you're leveraging all of the resources that are provided to you as part of that education program, and tap into the knowledge of the educators that are administering that program as well. Have a plan. And you need to have a plan from the get-go. Set a goal for yourself on the timeline in which you want to be ready to take the PTCE. Set an expectation to yourself on how frequently you're going to study. Ideally, you're going to try to do this every day of the week if you can. Most days of the week that you can accomplish this would be ideal. And note how many times a day or how many minutes a day you want to commit to your study plan. A little tidbit: adults tend to learn better in shorter spurts, so shorter, repeated study sessions, in my opinion, tend to be better for most people than less frequent but much longer study sessions. And keep your commitment to that plan. You want to stay consistent. Make sure that when you've got your calendar blocked to do studying, that you do it and you execute. And if you follow those tips, if you do all of the things that we talked about in this video in terms of leveraging PTCB practice tests, you'll be doing the best that you can to prepare yourself to succeed when it comes time to take the pharmacy technician certification exam. So make sure to like this video, follow our YouTube page, and reach out to us at Pharmacy Tech Scholar if there's anything that we can do to help you on your journey towards becoming a certified pharmacy technician.